your thoughts on the following statement. Women are more privileged than men.
Again, in certain areas.
Men are more oppressed than women.
In certain areas.
That's like an apology letter for how we were oppressed for so many years. I feel like they try to make up for it.
A letter.
Or like, you know, a
I think men need a letter for how oppressed men have been.
Well, they started the country. They gotta do it to themselves.
Men oppress other men.
Started the country.
Or founded.
I mean, whatever.
Like, oh my God.
Founded one of the most free countries in the world.
Quote unquote free, because
it is the most free.
We have the highest incarceration rate in the world.
And also most people live
because of the freedom,
it depends on who we're talking about.
Because people are free to do, because people are so free to do their actions, they're more likely to commit egregious crimes. Like, so in like communist China, for instance, like as you guys said, you feel pretty safe walking around because people are very, very scared of the government. They're not going to be going out screaming, Kim Jong-un sucks dick. Like, you can't even do that.
Bro, that's Korea. That's North Korea, bro.
As Xi Jinping. Xi Jinping sucks dick. Yeah, you can't like go out in China and Tiananmen Square and like start like doing that. You saw what happened with the tanks in the last guy.
Mm-hmm. Okay, like we have more, for example, like freedom of speech.
This place got shot up my second year at college.
I know, with what's his face?
Elliot
Rogers, yeah.
Okay, we have in the U.S. we have freedom of speech, which a lot of other countries don't really have. Like,
it depends, because one of my friends got to keep on getting raided by the FBI because he started Area 51 raid. You remember that? He literally kept getting raided every time he would tweet. It's like, yo, let's meet up. So like it's like freedom of speech with an apostrophe.
Well, yeah, you can't like plan. Yeah, but you can't just like, okay, guys, we're gonna like go invade
as long as
like
a
military base. You can't just.
Yeah, I think that.
It's a big difference.
I think the FBI tracking him actually does meet the Brandenburg v. Ohio test. I think they're constitutionally in the right year.
I think we do need to think about
Esquire.
I think we do need to take into account who has the most freedom, like within this country.
People with the most money have the most freedom.
Who gets to do whatever they want, whenever they want, and there's no.
Men?
I mean, is that not true?
Heterosexual.
Is that not true?
I came from Bakersfield, so it's not true.
Hold on. So you're part black woman, correct? What can I do as a white man that you can't do?
Do you remember? Okay,
answer the question. I'm a white man. What can I do that you can't?
Okay, let's say we were in, I don't know, I was a prostitute. Can I say that? And you were Ed John.
I don't know where the fuck this is going, but okay.
No, this is just that. Like, as far as like sex work experience, whatever, if anything were to happen.
That's right. You can be if like everything in your life fails,
if you were a John,
and you need money, you can sell yourself.
I'm saying
you're right.
I would buy.
No,
that's not nice to say that you can't sell yourself.
I'm very pricey.
Are you?
No, I'm saying if anything were to happen, if an altercation were to happen between us, who's going to get in trouble? It's going to be me every single time.
Wait,
is that the law?
And that is, it's
no. They're actually.
I don't know. That might be.
There's actually pushes to make prostitution legal, but they will criminalize
because there's no reason for it to be illegal. I mean, forced.
No, but
yes,
but you're saying that the women who's offering her services, she will get in trouble, but the men.
It's
a
mutual agreement.
It's actually typically the reverse. The man gets into more trouble.
No, not Johns. Don't Johns.
What state are you talking about?
They're trying to pass laws
tell me this,
to criminalize the procurer.
Oh, really?
Yeah, the Johns.
Oh, that's new. Then I never knew about that.
It's a thing.
I'm curious. What is it? I think this is probably highly dependent on the state laws.
Pixie,
probably.
Who is more oppressed?
Okay, here.
Who's more oppressed?
I'll give you a list on who's more oppressed and what.
Men are more oppressed.
Men are more oppressed emotionally. They are not allowed to express their emotions without being looked down upon.
You can't cry, like.
Yeah, but women are allowed to.
Or suicide rates.
Okay, let me ask you a question. But you often hear this talk about, oh, men are the oppressors, women are oppressed, male privilege.
Oh my God.
Okay.
Most violence on women are by men.
Let me tell you this. The minutes after birth, who's more oppressed? Let's just say the first 5 minutes, let's say the first 30 minutes of life. Who's more oppressed, men or women?
What are you?
Boys or girls?
What are you?
Everyone.
Just answer the question.
How am I?
Who's more oppressed?
What baby is more oppressed when
It's
they're
very easy. It's very easy. The first 30 minutes, who's more oppressed?
I don't fucking like
Baby.
Women, because women are born smaller and men drink more milk.
Guys, they need to get into like a baby fight,
No,
right?
yeah. You have to put them up against each other in a baby ring.
What-
I
Pixie,
saw
let
it
me
on
ask you a
South Park.
question.
We should do
What
That's how
it.
you find out. Crack babies. Like we can it could be a whole ring.
Pixie. Okay. Let's say the first 3 hours, the first day, no. I don't know how quickly after birth this occurs, but who's more oppressed, men or women,
Okay.
boys or girls?
I do not have oppression. That's not how oppression works.
Okay.
Like
As
that
like
not.
5-year-olds, I would say women are more oppressed.
Okay. I'm just talking about immediately upon birth.
No, well, what? Just say what you want to say.
Question.
Should I
Just
spit
get to
it
your
out?
point.
Get to your point. I really
Okay.
don't understand where you're going with this.
Okay.
I don't understand how you can answer
You
this
ready?
question.
You
Yes.
ready for this?
Oh, I know what
Is
you're
it
going to say. I
circumcision?
know.
Is that what you're gonna say?
That's what I was going to say.
Circumcision.
Yeah.
Oh, hey, yeah, you could say that's the way that
That's
men
also
are
an American
oppressed.
thing.
Yeah.
Men,
Sure.
upon birth, almost every single child in this country has their genitals mutilated. That's pretty fucking
What's the
Where did
rate?
that
brutal.
come from?
What's the rate? It's came from
It's
Jewish
very
people.
high. Well,
Damn.
make it-
No. It's like a custom.
Yeah, but even secular, let's not.
But no,
fucking
in
make it-
Europe they don't
okay.
do it normally. In Asia
Yes,
they
but
don't
we're
do it
talking.
normally.
Okay,
or
but we're talking.
in America, yeah.
Yes, there's certain countries, probably most countries
Why
don't
don't we
do it.
practice
We're talking
that?
about the United States.
I'm not
As a
gonna
male,
circumcise
if
my
you're
kids.
born in the United States, upon birth, your genitals are mutilated.
Yeah, sure.
Now
that's
I know
fucked
why
up.
Brian
who made
started
this
his
the norm?
podcast. He's upset about his foreskin and he wants it back.
What the fuck?
He's mad at all
I mean,
women for this,
why
especially
he
those
loves-
gosh darn STEM nurses.
That's why he loves large labias. It reminds him of what
Exactly, the skin that he's missing
Yes,
in
I'm
his
gonna
life.
steal it. I'm gonna steal the fucking labia. I want to wrap that shit around my dick, and I can pretend. I can pretend.
Your lost foreskin.
I
He's
can,
whole again.
I can pretend for a brief moment of pleasure that that's just my foreskin. That's right. You guys got me
I
figured out.
think that is messed up
Code.
though. That it's a norm for babies to
Yeah.
get mutilated.
Why is it a norm though? Like, where did that?
I think that's a bigger crime than any of these grievances that feminists
Your
throw
lost
out.
foreskin.
we need to get to the
No,
source
no,
of
no.
it
That,
to
that,
fix it.
that like a
foreskin.
very high percentage of babies. It's so funny that you guys laugh about this.
No, I'm
I
laughing
doubt,
at the idea
I
that-
doubt. Hold on, no. I'm gonna be serious here. I doubt that you guys would be laughing if it was the reverse. If women were having their fucking clits chopped off, like.
Well, it's not
In
your tip of
Africa,
your
they
penis,
do
but
that.
If we got our lips chopped off, we would be less
Sure,
discriminated
fine, the
against
fucking-
in porn and stuff. Like,
Oh my-
because men
not
also
for me,
think
bro.
that.
I exclusively watch that shit.
But you know, like there are people who exclusively watch uncircumcised people,
What the
but then the
fuck?
porn industry is like very circumcised dicks and you
Cheesy
know
Look,
small
male,
vaginas.
I would argue that men.
Never watched it.
Hold on. I would argue that men getting circumcised in the U.S. is a bigger grievance than any grievance that feminists have been talking about for the past ever.
Oh, really? The
Like-
right to vote.
Yes, getting circumcised,
okay.
circumcised is
Wait,
worse.
the right to not be a second-class citizen.
Yes, having your
Of being
genitals.
seen as
I would argue.
property. I
Yes,
think that's
I would
messed up.
argue that
Wait,
getting your
TV
genitals mutilated is probably a
So
bit
do you
worse.
think that should
Weird
be the
question,
dad's
though.
choice?
You must have grown up with like dudes in America whose parents didn't do that, and that must have been like a super self-conscious thing for them. Like
Well,
when
I
they were
think
in the
most-
locker room,
no,
dating
most-
girls.
Most men, I think, in the U.S. are circumcised.
Exactly. So if they don't get it, tend to be pretty self-conscious about it. They tend to
And
be
they're
scared to
discriminated
show.
against.
They tend to be scared to show women it. They like don't want to show it in the locker rooms. It's like, yeah. So whereas I don't know any time and period where like some women had the right to vote and other ones like who didn't have the right to vote, or sorry, where
Wait,
the
what?
ones who have the right to vote are like, man, I'm jealous of the women who don't have the right to vote. So
Yeah.
like,
Just that everyone all in.
Here's a bigger grievance: the draft, military conscription. That's a
Yeah.
bigger grievance than all of women's
Facts.
collective grievances combined.
No, I
Yep.
don't necessarily. I think it goes back
Really?
to right to vote. Yeah, absolutely.
Right
you're
to vote-
literally,
right to
You're
vote.
literally complaining
Oh,
about men.
oh,
Men. Oh no, men are. By the way, which I think is fucked up.
You're delusional, Pixie.
Okay, let me
Wait,
finish
finish
my
your sentence.
Yeah. So you can be like, oh no, like men being drafted is like horrible, et cetera, et cetera. Men who are in power decided for themselves, oh, we should draft other men, well, whatever. They have the right to vote. There's a chance to change that. While women don't even have, or at least if you're talking about any period in time, all periods in time or whatever, women didn't have the right to vote, right? So women could, if you theoretically had a society where the men decided we're going to draft women only, guess what? If women can't vote, they can't even fight that against themselves.
This argument is actually working against you because women, so first of all, when men originally had the right to vote, that was when the draft first started. It was linked to men who had the right to vote. And then when women gained the right to vote, they separated the distinction between voters and those who are drafted. So now you only have to sign up for the draft if you're a man who wants to vote.
No, but you misunderstand what I'm saying.
Women were able to, hold on, let me just come in really quick. Women, what Lauren is saying is women were able to secure the right to vote without the corresponding responsibility that men had to undertake by being subject to military conscription. So you were able to get a privilege without the corresponding
wait, you're misunderstanding what I'm trying to say.
What are you saying?
You're saying that the draft is by far like the worst form of oppression that a person can possibly have ever.
Military conscription.
Right. And I'm saying that at least during that time, or at least during the time that men had the right to vote and women didn't, there's a possibility of them deciding to turn that over, change it, et cetera, et cetera. Now, if for whatever reason in that time period, they decided to put that law onto women, that women have to be in the draft and they don't get a right to vote, guess who can change that? Not the woman. They don't have the right to vote. They don't have the right to put their elected representatives. They're fucked. That's why the right to vote is the most fundamental right that we have.
Your argument does nothing to rebuttal the fact that military conscription is a far greater grievance than any other grievance.
So I was saying that any village, like if you were to have one man and like 100 women, if all the men died, like they could still repopulate the village.
Dope, not gonna lie.
Yeah, so exactly, men agree with that. So men aren't gonna send their women to die. Like men aren't gonna like overtake a village and just like kill all the women either. They're probably gonna take them back. Like it's like, okay, so why would you send your women to war when your country cannot repopulate without the women?
Yes, there are tactical and logical reasons why men are more likely to be recruited to be soldiers because they make better soldiers.
However,
because of the physical advantages.
Yeah,
there's like physical and strategic advantages to keeping the women at home. However, when it comes to voting, I get what you're saying, that like voting is the most important because that controls the society and who's required to go to war, and I understand that. However, it needs to be tied to the act of potentially going to war, because if women have the power to vote, which we do, but that they're not tied to the potential issue of going to war, a potential issue of being drafted, then we can make silly and careless decisions with our voting, which can lead to wartime, which only negatively impacts men who will be required to literally die for our silly decisions.
That's under the assumption we absolutely don't care about the men in society, which a lot of people do care.
They may care, but sometimes they think that oftentimes people make bad decisions under good intentions, right? And so that's what she's talking about.
Look at how Obama got elected.
Wait, the idea that this is only a thing that women do or whatever, I don't think is very fair. Men also make silly decisions. Now you're saying, they're tied to the consequence. Not necessarily. They're tied to the consequence of what the majority believes, including majority of men. Either way, I don't think anybody should be drafted. I think the policy and literally the way that we get into war is a result of what legislators decide, right? Whether Congress decides like we're going to go to war with this country or not. Mm-hmm. So I think that the only way that Congress should be able to do that is if they're for sure as hell certain that everybody wants to go to war. Otherwise, I don't think the draft should be a thing, basically.
We need the draft though. Like,
if you don't think that your cause is strong enough to have people volunteer, to have the people in your country put their lives on the line, your country should not be going to war.
But in a self-defense situation, let's say your country's being invaded.
Yeah, chances are, and I truly believe this, and you can look at Ukraine and you can look at other countries that had their sovereignty in jeopardy. People will step up to the plate when
Ukraine was drafted. In fact, a lot of people were trying to flee Ukraine, and it became an issue with the trans people because women.
Ukraine.
Exactly. And then some people who thought that they were women but it had penises, they were not allowed to.
You're making this into trans issue.
So in Ukraine, hold on.
I do believe in general. I don't think that
you really looked into this.
In Ukraine, in Ukraine, when the war broke out, men between the ages of 18 to 60 were not allowed,
Facts.
could not leave the country.
Yeah, and I think that's messed up.
And they
I
were-
don't think, what is it? I think that when it comes to a country, if their legislator decides to go to war, they better be certain as hell that the people within their country want to fight.
But-
So
I
you-
would all,
did you-
But men, imagine
it's
that.
the
Imagine
defense.
if you were literally left to the whims of that, and it's like, oh, everyone who wants to fight, go fight. How stable would that society feel? Oh, only the people who volunteer.
most of our military is based on volunteer basis.
Yeah,
It's not
but
based
that's
on
not
a draft
subject
basis.
to a draft.
Wait,
When
no,
was the
but
last draft?
that literally
But-
illustrates the
Wait,
fact
hold
that
on.
like, hey, it is possible to have a military on volunteer basis, literally fighting wars in other countries.
Pixie.
We currently have it.
Yo,
in a world war, though,
okay,
in
but-
something that was really that severe and drastic.
Well, I mean, we've
like,
had world wars before, and we did have drafts, but we also had a shit ton of people volunteering.
I
This
feel like
idea
if we
that-
were being invaded by another country, they were coming, Russia, China coming at us with full force, would we really be saying, I just hope all the people who really
What
want
do
to
you
fight
mean?
go and fight? No,
People would literally-
the full force of the country to be protecting us.
Look at what happened after like Pearl Harbor. You had a shit ton of people suddenly
Yes.
be okay with war, wanting to go to war, like volunteering for war. This idea that
And-
like, oh, everyone's gonna suddenly cower away when their lives are threatened and
Hold
on the
on.
line.
Pick-
I think
Hold
that's
on.
delusional.
Pixie, what is the strongest, like, do you know which is the strongest army for its size, like, in terms?
Isn't it the United States? Or am I
It'd
wrong?
probably be the Israeli army. And it's the,
Drafted.
Oh yeah, they have nuclear weapons and everything.
for their tiny country, and they have like they fought 7-day war. They fought off all of the countries surrounding them by themselves as a brand new country. And the only way that their military works is every single person in their country, man and women, are forced to serve in the military for at least 2 years in the IDF. And so you're saying that that would provide for a weaker military, but just like all evidence shows.
What do you mean? I'm talking about the United States.
She's pro-draft.
No, I'm the opposite.
no,
I'm talking.
okay.
No, I'm saying for
Yo,
women. For
Pixie,
women.
So World War II,
Or
I'm looking
pro-women.
here.
Yeah, people got drafted in World War II. That's not a surprise.
But you were saying, you were acting as if the vast majority of people just went in and
No, I'm
volunteered.
saying there was a huge surge of like volunteering.
Yes.
I don't know about the exact
And-
numbers, but
and
yeah,
there were men-
and right now,
And there were men who were drafted who did not want to go to war, who went to the front lines in Europe or in the Pacific, and they're dead. They
Yeah.
died.
Yeah.
18-year-olds.
yeah, and I'm saying that's really fucked up.
Yeah, I think men and women should both be drafted
Okay,
with like modern
so
technology.
is it more fucked up than women not having the right to vote?
Because if you do not have the right to vote, you do not have the right to change or stop or add onto the draft. Our society is built
Okay.
on voting.
But-
Would you
but-
Without voting, everything else falls apart.
Okay, can I ask you a question? Would you rather in, let's say, 1917, as a 18-year-old, let's say you're a boy, get drafted, get sent to, let's see, Amiens in France, and go spend 3 weeks in a trench, you get trench foot, and then a shell implodes your face in, and then you're just dead? Or would you just prefer to be back home in fucking Montana on your farm and just not be able to vote, and you don't know anything about politics?
You're acting as if not having the right to vote doesn't change or affect everything in your fucking life.
Oh,
But
wait, would
that's
you
like freedom, right? You argue that, oh yeah, maybe we
I-
have
if
freedom
it
to
was up
roam
to
the
me,
streets
let me-
and
okay.
have someone stab you, but that's freedom. So
Maybe this is gonna sound like I'm a pussy or a coward, but I kind of value living and shit. So if I was 18 years old back in 1917, I think I would, as some fucking stupid farm dude who doesn't know anything about the world, hasn't set foot outside my town, would I rather just not be able to vote on issues I don't even
That's
really
straw man,
know
though.
about,
It is a straw
or
man.
get sent to let's see, where do I get sent to in World War I?
D-Day.
No, not well. That's World War II.
Yeah,
I get
that's
sent
fine.
to Passchendaele, and I'm in a trench for 2 months, and I have the Spanish flu, and then I let's see what else.
You are literally creating a
And
false
then
dichotomy.
and then I just get shot, and I'm
Okay.
dead.
No, do you
And I
think-
just die in a trench.
without the right to vote, not only can you get drafted, but you can also face the repercussions of like, hey, guess what? Okay, they passed a policy where they say your 18-year-old ass not only gets drafted, but has to have, like, I don't know, their balls tortured for a week before
Okay,
doing
fuck?
so. No, that's
hold
what I'm
on.
saying.
Pixie-
Without the right to vote, you are literally under the thumb of whatever power or authority structure there is in place at the time.
Pixie, what you're
you
trying-
have no freedom.
Pixie, you're trying to say that if you don't have freedom, then you could get drafted as well.
Yes.
Right? Okay. However, in this scenario, you only can get drafted if you also have the right to vote. They're linked together. And if you don't have the right to vote, you cannot get drafted. They're mutually exclusive in this scenario.
Yeah, but the point
so
is,
would you rather have the right to vote and be drafted, or not have the right to vote and not be drafted?
okay, but here's the issue, or here's $1 million problem. You're saying like, oh no, it's guaranteed that you won't be drafted if you don't have the right to vote. But by virtue of not having the right to vote, you cannot guarantee not being drafted.
In America,
What?
you can.
No, because it is
What?
up to the people and legislator that literally control the laws, whether you get
Pixie,
drafted or not.
Pixie.
Eventually, yes. But in American history, that was never the case. So I understand that what you're saying. Eventually, down the line, if men had the right to vote and maintained the right to vote, and they never gave women any power, and then they started writing crazy legislation requiring women to also become drafted, then yes, eventually women could be drafted. However, that was never the situation. The
Okay.
situation was always logically
Here,
linking
Let me jump in. I'm
drafting
going to jump in after Lauren.
drafting to voting. So because of that, there's never a scenario in which you're going to be drafted and don't have the right to vote. So with that being said, would you rather have the right to vote and be drafted, or no right to vote and guarantee you will not get drafted?
Wait, I'm genuinely curious.
Here, look, let me come in really quick. So, just to give a little background, this stemmed from me basically asking I made a statement about, I think that military conscription throughout history is a worse grievance than women's grievance of not being able to vote. I think that is
You said worse than any grievance possible of women's history.
Well, I mean, I'm also prepared to say, like, worse than what? Wait, what?
The statement you said.
Yes, I said women's collective grievances, but I think the ultimate grievance that women often cite is not having the right to vote.
Yeah, that is. Well, you also had problems in the past where it was like legal to abuse your wife to like.
That's fake news.
That's
It's
not
never
fake
been
news.
positively looked upon to be a wife beater throughout
Not positively
history.
looked upon on society, but it's been like
Allowed.
you had to have
It's allowed.
at-fault divorces, and it was extremely difficult to prove abuse. So you'd have to prove abuse in a court of law to even get the divorce, which was just.
Okay, well, I don't know in the 1700s the frequency of domestic violence in.
Okay.
But I mean, you have
Like,
what is
I
it?
don't know.
There's like history textbooks talking about like how domestic violence, specifically
I
in
don't
Europe.
think it was the norm.
It
I
w-
really
well,
don't
no,
think
it's not about it-
husbands.
Drafting was
husbands
also
were-
not the norm. The majority of people did not get drafted throughout history. But when it comes to like domestic violence, domestic abuse, yeah, it was widely popularized that, hey, this is something you actually should do. You should hit your wife when she gets out of line, or even
You
when she
can.
doesn't.
Like
You
you
can and you
can,
should.
and it's fine.
One of my dad's
Okay.
favorite lines from like an Irish movie is, "Here's a fine stick to beat the lovely lady."
Oh my god.
That's a yikes. Okay, comparing military conscription to not having the right to vote. I don't see how you arrive at not having the right to vote is worse.
They just sound like they're both held because, I mean, they both come with, like, consequences. Like, not having the right to vote. It's not just not having the right to vote. You didn't have rights, like, at all, like, as a person or, like women. Like, they were kind of like a subgenre.
Okay, Pixie, do you know what? Do you know when World War II, or excuse me, the dates for World War One?
I can't remember. 1912,
1913?
1917.
1914 to 1918.
Okay,
So
close enough.
women got the right to vote in 1920, just 2 years after one of the most brutal, at the time, the most brutal war that had ever been seen,
Yeah.
most casualties, most injuries. I think if you were 18 years old in the years preceding that, it would be it'd be pretty hard for you to argue that women who didn't have the right to vote were worse off than the men that got sent to Europe during World War I. And where there was forced military conscription.
Okay. You are literally comparing, basically, all women did not have this right.
Yes.
They were under the subjugation of either their husbands or fathers. It was,
Under the subjugation or the protection?
It's not protection when they can legally beat your ass.
But you're saying
couldn't-
you're saying this as if wholesale men were just every day.
No,
putting the-
I'm saying the fact that it can be that all women were not guaranteed these protections. That's what I'm saying. I'm saying that if you're a woman and you don't have the right to vote, you don't have the right to change legislation, guess what? Like, if a man... like,
What percentage of men do you think were just frequently beating their wives?
It doesn't matter about what percentage. It matters that you couldn't get justice for it. I don't have it doesn't matter. Again, it's not what percentage. It's the fact that it could happen and it is seen as normalized and okay if it happens because that's just a dumb lady, second-class citizen, like broad. Isn't even smart enough to vote. Shouldn't vote.
Even today,
women at the time, I feel like didn't feel like that though. When you some of them maybe depending on circumstances, but when you look back at a lot of the videos from women as the feminist movement was happening, they're asking them like, "What do you think about all of this?" And they're like, "I don't know about it. I don't know about this women's liberation shit. Like this could honestly potentially be bad." It could potentially put us in bad situations. This could be dangerous. I like the freedom to be able to be at home and be a mother and not have to go out there in the workplace. A lot of them
But you
at
still
the time
choose
were
that.
happy with it.
It's not freedom if you don't get to choose
feminism is about you can either choose to be a stay-at-home mom and not go to work, not go to school, and it's fine, or you can choose to be a career woman. So I think that's the point, to have the freedom to choose versus before, it's not normal for women to go to college, for example, or to
Right.
vote.
But that doesn't necessarily equate to them being oppressed. And I think that's a big problem is people automatically assume that women at the time were oppressed. There's a lot of women who are more than happy doing that. And there's a lot of women
to do that.
And there's a lot of women now today who, when they want to live that more traditional lifestyle, they are judged by the boss babes of this generation, by the women who are making a lot of these arguments that we're discussing here today, and literally look down on women who are advocating for a more traditional lifestyle.